Have you ever met someone so entitled they tried to sell the bed their own father was sleeping in? My name is Reggie Sterling 4, and according to my watch, I'm the richest man in this zip code. My father is upstairs, tucked away in his silk sheets, fading out like an old radio signal. He thinks he's leaving his empire to me. He's right, but I'm not waiting for him to stop breathing to start cashing in. Today, I'm selling Blackwood Manor to a group of luxury developers. The only problem? Arthur, our butler. He's been here for 40 years, haunting these halls like a dusty ghost. He thinks he's part of the family. He thinks he can tell me no. Today, I handed him an eviction notice and told him to have his bags packed by sunset. He didn't blink. He just smiled and asked if I wanted sugar in my tea. He has no idea that by tomorrow, he'll be on the street and I'll be on a yacht. Or so I thought. Because Arthur isn't just a butler. He's the trustee. And I just realized that in this house, I'm not the prince. I'm the house guest. Welcome to ThreadVerse. The grandfather clock in the foyer of Blackwood Manor struck 10 a.m. with a heavy, ominous chime that seemed to vibrate through the very floorboards. I stood at the top of the grand staircase, adjusted my $5,000 silk robe, and looked down at the entrance hall. Everything in this house was old. The paintings were old. The carpets were old. And Arthur, standing at the base of the stairs with his back perfectly straight, was the oldest of all. Arthur, I barked, my voice echoing off the vaulted ceilings. Yes, Master Reginald, Arthur replied without looking up. He was polishing a silver tray with a precision that bordered on the obsessive. The men from Vanguard Development will be here at noon. I want the east wing opened up. I want the dust covers removed. And for God's sake, wear a different jacket. You look like you belong in a museum. Arthur paused his polishing. He slowly looked up, his gray eyes as calm and still as a frozen lake. Master Reginald, your father specifically requested that the east wing remain closed. He finds the light in those rooms comforting during his afternoon rests. My father, I said, descending the stairs slowly, is barely aware of what day it is, Arthur. He's lived his life. This house is a relic. It's sitting on $50 million of prime real estate, and I'm not letting it rot just because a sick old man likes the light. I reached the bottom step and stood inches from him. Arthur didn't flinch. He smelled of faint lavender and expensive starch. I've signed the intent to sell, Arthur. The developers are coming to take measurements. And since the new owners intend to raise the building to put up luxury condos, your services will no longer be required. I pulled a white envelope from my robe pocket and dropped it onto the silver tray he was holding. There's your notice. 1 month severance. Consider it a gift. I want you out by the time the ink on the contract is dry. Arthur looked down at the envelope. He didn't open it. He didn't scream. He didn't even look insulted. He simply placed the polishing cloth over the tray, covering the notice like it was an unsightly piece of trash. I see, Arthur said softly. You have been very busy this morning, Master Reginald. I'm a businessman, Arthur. Something my father forgot to be in his later years. Now, go tell the cook to prepare a lunch for the developers. Something expensive. I want them to feel the prestige of the land before they tear it down. The cook has been given the week off, sir, Arthur said, per your father's instructions. Then do it yourself. You're the butler, aren't you? Butler me a sandwich. I walked past him toward the library, laughing at my own wit. I felt powerful. For 30 years, I'd lived under the thumb of the great Reginald III. I'd been the disappointment, the party boy, the son who couldn't be trusted with the keys to the kingdom. Well, the kingdom was mine now, by default. I sat at my father's desk, the heavy oak desk that smelled of tobacco and ancient secrets. I pulled out my laptop and checked my offshore account. The balance was dangerously low. I owed money to people in Macau who didn't wait until my dad dies as a valid payment plan. I needed this sale. I needed Blackwood Manor to vanish. That's when I noticed a small, black leather ledger sitting on the corner of the desk. It wasn't one of my father's. It was newer. I opened it. It was a list of expenses. Not for the house, but for me. Reginald 4, Ferrari repair, $45,000. Reginald 4, casino debt settlement, $120,000. Reginald 4, monthly allowance, $25,000. Next to every entry was a signature. Not my father's loopy, shaky handwriting. It was a sharp, elegant script, authorized by A.P. Sterling. A.P. Sterling? I whispered. Who the hell is A.P. Sterling? At exactly 12 p.m., a black SUV pulled up the long, winding driveway. 3 men in sharp, charcoal gray suits stepped out, carrying clipboards and laser measuring devices. They looked like vultures in expensive footwear. I met them at the door, my chest puffed out. Gentlemen, welcome to your future gold mine. I trust the drive from the city wasn't too taxing. Mr. Sterling, the lead developer, a man named Henderson, said with a shark-like grin. The property is even more impressive in person. The footprint alone is worth the asking price. We're thinking 3 towers, floor-to-ceiling glass, private infinity pools. Whatever makes the most zeros, I said, leading them inside. Arthur, get these men some drinks. Arthur appeared from the shadows of the dining room. He wasn't wearing his butler's jacket. He was wearing a simple, high-quality wool sweater and slacks. He looked relaxed. Mr. Henderson, Arthur said, nodding to the developers. I believe you've made a mistake in your navigation. This property is not for sale. Henderson laughed, looking at me. Is your servant okay, Reggie? Has he been hitting the cooking sherry? Arthur, shut up and get the drinks. I hissed, my face turning red. Henderson, ignore him. He's sentimental. He's been here since the Victorian era. Actually, Arthur said, stepping into the center of the foyer, I am the chairman of the Sterling Perpetual Trust. And according to the bylaws established by Reginald Sterling II in 1954, this estate cannot be sold, partitioned, or altered without the unanimous consent of the Board of Trustees. I felt a cold shiver crawl up my spine. What board? My father is the only one on the board. No, Master Reginald, Arthur said, pulling a pair of gold-rimmed spectacles from his pocket and putting them on. Your father retired from the board 5 years ago due to his health. He appointed a successor, someone who has spent 40 years learning the value of this family's legacy. Arthur pulled a document from the silver tray, the same tray I dropped the eviction notice on. This is the trust registry. My full name is Arthur P. Sterling. Your father legally adopted me into the financial lineage 30 years ago. I'm not just the butler, Reggie. I'm your older brother in the eyes of the law. And as the majority trustee, I'm afraid I have to reject your intent to sell. Henderson's grin vanished. Sterling, what the hell is this? You told us you had the rights. I do. He's lying. He's a servant. I lunged for the paper, but Arthur stepped back with a grace that made me stumble. Furthermore, Arthur continued, his voice as calm as a Sunday morning. The trust has been monitoring your personal spending. The Ferrari repairs and the casino debts have been flagged as a violation of the Spendthrift Clause. As of 5 minutes ago, your allowance has been suspended. Your credit cards have been deactivated. And since you've expressed such a desire for this house to be raised, I've decided to honor your wish for a change of scenery. Arthur looked at the developers. Gentlemen, please leave. Master Reginald is currently a trespasser in a house he no longer has a right to inhabit. The iron gates of Blackwood Manor didn't just close. They clanged with the finality of a prison door. I stood on the outside of the perimeter, the freezing rain of a Connecticut autumn soaking through my $5,000 silk robe within seconds. The fabric, once light and luxurious, now clung to my skin like a cold, wet shroud. I looked down at my feet. My velvet slippers were ruined, the fine embroidery caked in mud. I was the master of a $50 million estate, and I was standing in a ditch. This isn't happening, I whispered, my breath hitching in the cold air. Arthur is a servant. He's a relic. He can't do this. I pulled my phone from my pocket, my fingers trembling. I needed to call Slim. Slim was my fixer. He was the guy who arranged the private tables in Vegas and the cleaners when I crashed my cars. I hit speed dial. Slim, it's Reggie. I need to pick up at the Blackwood gates. Now, and call my bank. Some old man is trying to lock me out of my accounts. I need 50 grand in cash and a suite at the Pierre. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear the muffled bass of a club in the background. Then, Slim's voice came through, sounding strangely flat. Reggie? Yeah, I heard. The news is already hitting the private feeds. The Sterling Trust issued a spendthrift injunction. Every card tied to your name has been flagged as stolen property. If I pick you up, I'm accessory to a fraud. Sorry, man. I don't hang out with former billionaires. The line went dead. The realization hit me like a physical blow to the stomach. To the world of slims and fixers, I wasn't Reggie Sterling. I was a walking credit limit. And my limit was now 0. I walked 3 miles to the city in the rain. I ended up at the law offices of Gordon & Partners. My father's old friend, Bill Gordon, had known me since I was in diapers. He'd help. He had to. The lobby of the firm was a cathedral of mahogany and silence. The receptionist looked at me, soaked, muddy, wearing a bathrobe, and her expression didn't even flicker. She'd seen high society falls before. Mr. Gordon is in a meeting, Mr. Sterling, she said, her voice like ice. I'll wait. I snapped, sitting on a designer leather chair. I left a brown, muddy streak on the white leather. I didn't care. An hour later, Bill Gordon walked out. He didn't invite me into his office. He stood in the hallway, looking at me with a mix of pity and absolute boredom. Bill, you have to stop him, I said, standing up. Arthur is claiming he's the trustee. He's a butler. It's a coup. It's not a coup, Reggie. It's a succession, Bill said, adjusting his glasses. I was there 3 years ago when your father signed the amendment. He did it after your third rehab stint that cost the family $4 million in hush money. He realized that if he gave you the keys to the kingdom, you'd burn the kingdom down to buy the matches. Arthur is the trustee because Arthur is the only one your father could trust to keep the Sterling name from becoming a joke. He can't leave me with nothing, I shouted, the sound echoing off the vaulted ceilings. He didn't leave you with nothing. He left you with a choice. Arthur has the power to reinstate your allowance the moment he sees meaningful personal growth. Right now, Reggie, you're a man in a wet bathrobe screaming in a lobby. That's not growth. That's a tantrum. Now, please leave before I have security assist you. I walked out into the rain again. For the first time in my 30 years, I was invisible. Midnight at Blackwood Manor was usually a time of quiet luxury. Tonight, it was a fortress. I snuck back onto the grounds through a gap in the stone wall near the old stables. I knew the layout of this place better than anyone. I knew the blind spots in the security cameras, or so I thought. I navigated the rose gardens, the thorns tearing at my silk robe, until I reached the service entrance. I wanted to see my father. I was convinced that if he saw me, his only son, he would snap out of his fog. He'd see that he'd made a mistake. He'd fire Arthur and give me back my life. I slipped through the kitchen, my ruined slippers making a squelching sound on the tiles. The house was silent, save for the rhythmic, mechanical hiss-thump of the oxygen concentrator coming from the master suite upstairs. It was the heartbeat of the house, a constant reminder that the old world was dying. I reached the bedroom door and pushed it open. The room was dim, lit only by the green glow of the medical monitors. My father lay there, looking like a skeleton wrapped in silk. Dad, I whispered, walking to the edge of the bed. Dad, it's me. Reggie, you have to wake up. He's taking everything. He's acting like he's your son. I reached out to touch his hand. It was cold and fragile. Master Reginald, a voice said from the darkness. I jumped, my heart nearly stopping. Arthur was sitting in a high-backed wing chair in the corner of the room. He wasn't sleeping. He was watching. He had a small book in his lap, a reading light casting deep shadows across his face. What are you doing here? I hissed. Get out. This is a private family moment. I have been in this room every night for 5 years, Reggie, Arthur said, his voice a low, steady baritone. While you were at the clubs in London or the casinos in Macau, I was the one who changed his filters. I was the one who read him the morning papers. I was the one who held his hand when he woke up screaming from nightmares about the son who wouldn't call him back. He's my father. He is a man who spent 40 years building an empire and 5 years realizing he had no heir. Arthur stood up, the light catching the silver of his hair. He didn't make me trustee to spite you. He did it to save you. He knew that the day he died, the developers and the Vultures would descend on you like a feast. He knew you'd sign anything for a quick payout. He made me the wall between you and your own greed. I'm going to sue you into the dirt, Arthur. With what money? The trust pays for your legal fees only if the litigation is in the best interest of the estate. Suing the trustee to liquidate the estate is, by definition, an adverse action. You have no resources, Reggie. You have no friends. All you have is that robe and a choice. Arthur walked to the door and opened it. Go back to the motel, Master Reginald. Sleep on the polyester sheets. Eat the vending machine food. Feel the weight of a world without a Sterling safety net. Perhaps by morning, you'll understand why your father found the light in the East Wing so comforting. The motel was called the Sunset Rest. It was a lie. There was no rest there, only the sound of the highway and the smell of stale cigarettes and cheap disinfectant. I sat on the edge of a bed that felt like it was stuffed with gravel. My silk robe was stained and torn. I looked at the small, black leather ledger Arthur had given me. It wasn't a ledger of money. It was a ledger of my failures. I was hungry, a deep, gnawing hunger that I'd never felt before. I realized I hadn't eaten in 24 hours. I reached into the pocket of my robe and found my last remaining asset, a Rolex Daytona. It was a platinum masterpiece, worth more than the entire motel. I walked to a pawn shop 3 blocks away. The sign out front flickered in the neon night. Cash for gold, and no questions asked. The man behind the counter was named Sal. He had a glass eye and a permanent scowl. He looked at the Rolex, then at me, the muddy guy in a bathrobe. Stolen, Sal asked, not even picking it up. It's mine. It was a gift from my father. Sure it was. I'll give you $5,000. Not a penny more. $5,000. This is an $80,000 watch. To a guy in a suit with papers, yeah? To a guy in a bathrobe with mud on his face? It's a liability. $5,000. Take it or go back to the street. I took the money. $5,000. A week ago, that was a tip for a waiter. Now, it was my entire life. I went back to the motel and opened the second envelope Arthur had left in the ledger. It was a letter, dated 5 years ago. My father's handwriting was shaky, but the words were clear. Reggie, if you are reading this, it means the money has run out and the walls have closed in. I know you hate me right now. I know you think I've betrayed you. But I want you to look at Arthur. I want you to see the man I wish you had become. He is a man of service. He understands that a Sterling doesn't just take, he maintains. I have given him the power to be your judge. Not because I don't love you, but because I love you enough to let you fail. Only when you have nothing will you realize what you truly possess. Dad. I crumpled the letter and threw it against the wall. But as I sat in the dark, listening to the drip of the leaky faucet, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt small. I felt like a ghost in my own life. I spent a week at the Sunset Rest. I spent my days watching the people who actually lived there, single mothers working 2 jobs, old men who had outlived their pensions. I saw them treat each other with a dignity I'd never shown anyone. I saw a woman share her lunch with a neighbor, and it hit me. She had more wealth in that moment than I'd had in my entire life. I decided to find Mr. White. He was my father's retired personal assistant. He'd been with the family for 30 years before Arthur forced him out. I thought he'd be the one to help me expose Arthur's fraud. I found him in a small, tidy cottage near the coast. He was gardening when I arrived. He looked at me, then at my motel-purchased jeans and t-shirt. Master Reginald, he said, wiping his brow. I heard you'd finally been invited to join the rest of us in reality. Mr. White, I need to know the truth. Arthur, he's manipulated the trust, hasn't he? He's taking over. White stopped gardening and looked at me with a profound sadness. Reggie, Arthur didn't manipulate anything. He tried to stop your father from doing this. He argued for hours, telling your father that you just needed more time. It was your father who insisted. He told Arthur, if I leave him the money, I kill him. If I leave him Arthur, I give him a chance to live. But the developers, they say Arthur is blocking a sale that would pay off the debts. The debts are yours, Reggie, not the family's. Arthur is protecting the land so that when you finally grow up, there's something left for you to lead. He isn't the villain of your story. You are. White handed me a glass of water. Do you know what Arthur does with his salary, Reggie? He puts it back into the Sterling Chariot Fund, the one that pays for the staff's healthcare. He hasn't taken a raise in 10 years. He lives in the servants' quarters because he believes a trustee should be the first to work and the last to eat. I sat on the porch, the weight of the truth finally crushing the last of my ego. I looked at my hands. They were dirty. My fingernails were chipped. I looked like a worker. What do I do, Mr. White? You go home. But don't go back as a Sterling. Go back as a man who wants to learn how to be one. That evening, I walked up the long driveway of Blackwood Manor. The rain had stopped, and the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the stone walls. I didn't go to the front door. I went to the service entrance. Arthur opened the door. He looked at me, his eyes scanning my face. He didn't see the anger. He didn't see the entitlement. He saw the defeat. I'm here to work, Arthur, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I don't want the money. I just want to learn how to take care of the house. Like you do. Arthur didn't say anything for a long time. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a clean, white apron. He handed it to me. The silver needs polishing, Master Reginald. And the east wing needs the dust covers adjusted. The light is fading. I'll get the polish, I said, stepping into the kitchen. For the first time in 30 years, I didn't feel like a prince. I felt like I was finally where I belonged. The kitchen of Blackwood Manor at 5 a.m. was a place I had never known. To me, the kitchen was a theoretical space from which food appeared. Now, it was a cold, cavernous room that smelled of industrial soap, stale coffee, and the sharp, acidic tang of lemon juice and salt used for cleaning copper. The set of French copper pots, Master Reginald, Arthur said, his voice as crisp as the morning air. He gestured to a wall of blackened, tarnished cookware that looked like it had survived a war. They were your grandmother's. They haven't been truly polished since 1998. Since you have such a passion for modernizing things, you can start by restoring these to their original glory. I stood there, wearing a stiff white apron over my clothes, holding a scrubbing pad. My hands, once pampered by high-end spas and luxury lotions, were already red and raw from the previous day's floor scrubbing. This is a joke, Arthur. This is just manual labor for the sake of humiliation. No, Reggie, Arthur said, stepping closer. He picked up a small, heavy pot and held it up to the light. This is a lesson in value. You see the tarnish? That's what happens when you ignore what you own. You think because it's blackened, it's worthless. You think you should throw it away and buy a new one. But underneath that grime is pure, solid metal that could outlast us both. You just have to be willing to sweat to find it. Arthur left me alone in the kitchen. For 5 hours, I scrubbed. The salt and vinegar stung the small cuts on my fingers. The steam from the hot water made the room stifling. Around 8 a.m., Mrs. Gable, The cook I had once called disposable walked in to start breakfast. She didn't say a word. She just dropped a 50-pound sack of potatoes next to me, the thud vibrating through the floor. "If you're done with the grandmother's pots, the silver service needs to be laid for the lawyers," she said, her voice flat. "And don't bother asking for help. We're short-staffed, remember? Since you fired the junior maid last week." I didn't argue. I didn't snap. I just kept scrubbing. I watched as the black film slowly gave way to a dull orange, then a bright, fiery copper. It was satisfying in a way I couldn't explain. For the first time in my life, I was producing something instead of just consuming it. By noon, the pots were hanging on the rack, gleaming like trophies. I looked at my reflection in the largest one. I looked tired. I looked dirty. But I looked like I actually belonged in the room. At 1 p.m., the doorbell rang. It was the sound I had been dreading. Henderson was back, and he hadn't come alone. He brought a man in a charcoal suit who radiated the cold energy of a high-priced fixer. They didn't wait in the foyer. They marched into the library as if they already owned the deed. Arthur met them there, his hands folded behind his back. I stood in the corner, still wearing my dirty apron, a polishing rag tucked into my belt. "We filed the petition, Arthur," Henderson said, tossing a thick legal packet onto the mahogany desk. "We're challenging the competency of Reggie Sterling III. We have affidavits from former clinic staff claiming he was under undue influence when he appointed a servant as his trustee. The court is going to freeze the trust by Friday." "Undue influence?" Arthur asked, his voice a calm, steady barrier. "I have 40 years of service records and medical logs that suggest otherwise." "Logs you wrote," the fixer sneered. "The court won't care about your diaries, old man. They care about the air." Henderson turned to me. He looked at my apron and the dirt under my fingernails with a look of pure, unadulterated disgust. "Reggie, look at yourself. You're a janitor. You're polishing your own banisters while this guy sits on your $50 million. We're offering you a way out. Sign this affidavit. State that Arthur has been keeping you from your father. State that he's been mismanaging the funds. If you do that, the developers will pay off your Macau debts, give you $5 million in cash, and a penthouse in the city. You can be a Sterling again, Reggie. All you have to do is throw the Butler to the wolves." I looked at the document. It was a notice of intent to dissolve trust. I knew what that document meant. If I signed it, Arthur would be fired, the manor would be demolished, and I'd have my freedom. I looked at Arthur. He didn't look at the document. He looked at me. His expression was neutral, but his eyes were wide, as if he was holding his breath. $5 million, I asked, my voice sounding gravelly. "Cash. Wire transfer the second the judge signs the order," Henderson said, sliding a gold pen across the desk. I picked up the pen. I felt the weight of it. I thought about the motel. I thought about the sunset rest and the polyester sheets. Then, I looked at the copper pots I had polished this morning. I thought about my father's cold hand in the East Wing. "You know," I said, looking at Henderson, "I spent my whole life thinking people were like these pens, tools to be used and thrown away. But I spent 5 hours this morning cleaning a pot that's older than you. And you know what I learned? You can't fix tarnish with a new coat of paint. You have to scrub it out." I didn't sign the paper. I tore it in half. Then I tore it into fourths. I dropped the pieces onto the mahogany desk like confetti. My father wasn't under undue influence. He was under the care of the only man who didn't want anything from him. "Get out of my house. And Henderson, if I see your car on this driveway again, I'm not calling the lawyers. I'm calling the police to report a trespassing and a bribe attempt. I have the library cameras synced to the Trust's secure server. Everything you just said is already being reviewed by our counsel." Henderson's face went from pale to a deep, bruised purple. "You're a fool, Reggie. You'll die in that apron." "At least it's mine," I said. "Now, show them out, Arthur. I have the silver to finish." That night, the house was silent in a way that felt heavy. The legal battle wasn't over, but the Vultures had been wounded. I went to the East Wing, not as a trespasser, but as a guardian. My father was awake. It was the first time in weeks. His eyes were open, cloudy but fixed on the orange glow of the sunset hitting the wall. "Arthur," he whispered, his voice a dry rasp. "No, Dad. It's Reggie," I said, sitting in the chair by the bed. I didn't reach for his hand at first. I just sat there. He turned his head slowly. He looked at me, and for a second, the cloudiness seemed to clear. He saw the white apron. He saw the raw skin on my knuckles. A tiny, weak smile touched his lips. "You smell like lemon juice," he whispered. "I've been polishing the copper, Dad. And the brass." Arthur told me the East Wing light was important. I wanted to make sure it had something to reflect off of. My father reached out. It was a slow, agonizing movement. I took his hand. It felt like holding a bird made of glass. "Arthur is my son, too," he said, his voice barely audible over the hum of the oxygen. "I didn't give him the money. I gave him the duty. And I gave you the chance to find him. I found him, Dad. I'm sorry it took me so long to come home. He gripped my hand with a surprising, momentary strength. Don't sell the light, Reggie. Keep the light. He closed his eyes then. The monitors began to beep, a steady, slow rhythm that eventually turned into a long, flat tone. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just held his hand until the sun went down and the east wing was swallowed by shadows. Arthur walked in a few minutes later. He didn't need to ask. He saw me sitting there in the dark. He walked to the bed, closed my father's eyes with a gentle touch, and then did something he had never done in 40 years. He put his hand on my shoulder. He died knowing the house was safe. Reggie, Arthur said, that's the greatest gift a trustee can give a grantor. The will was read 2 weeks later. The developers had retreated into the shadows, their reputations tarnished by the bribery footage. The estate was quiet. The lawyer sat in the library, the same place where I had tried to sell the house a month ago. To my son, Reginald IV, the lawyer read, I leave the sum of $1. This is to ensure he understands that wealth is not a birthright, but a consequence of character. I nodded. I expected that. However, the lawyer continued, the Sterling Perpetual Trust is to be restructured. Arthur P. Sterling shall remain the managing trustee for life. But a new position has been created, the conservator of the legacy. This position is to be held by Reginald IV, provided he continues to reside on the property and maintains a satisfactory level of service as determined by the managing trustee. I looked at Arthur. Conservator of the legacy? Does that come with a desk? It comes with a set of keys, Reggie, Arthur said, sliding a heavy brass ring across the table, and a responsibility to the staff. We're not selling the land. We're converting the north acreage into a public park and the west wing into a historical archive. The Sterlings won't be known for their parties anymore. They'll be known for their preservation. I stood up and walked to the grand staircase. I looked at the banister I had polished. I looked at the copper pots in the kitchen. I realized that my father hadn't disowned me. He had promoted me. He had moved me from a consumer to a creator. Arthur, I called out. Yes, Reginald. The developers are still calling. They want to buy the rights to the name Blackwood for a new mall downtown. And what is your response as the conservator? I looked at my hands, scarred, tough, and clean. Tell them the name isn't for sale. But if they need someone to show them how to polish their own brass, I might be available for a consulting fee. Sugar in your tea, Arthur? Arthur smiled. A genuine, brotherly smile. 2 lumps, Reggie. And don't burn the toast this time. And that, everyone, is the story of how Reggie Sterling lost a fortune but found a family. He started as a guy who wanted to tear down his own history for a quick buck, and he ended as the man who polished the very brass his ancestors touched. Seeing Henderson and the Vultures fly away empty-handed while Arthur and Reggie became the ultimate team, that is the kind of ProRevenge that stays with you. Reggie learned that the most valuable thing in Blackwood Manor wasn't the art or the land. It was the man who kept the lights on when no one else was looking. If you cheered when Reggie tore up that affidavit, do me a huge favor, smash that like button. It really helps us grow this community and lets us keep telling these stories of justice and growth. And if you're new to ThreadVerse, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. We've got more secret wills, more entitled heirs getting a reality check, and more absolute karma coming your way. Before you go, tell me in the comments, do you think Reggie really changed, or was he just playing the game to keep his home? And would you have the patience Arthur had to teach a guy like Reggie? I read every single comment. And remember, never judge a man by the apron he wears. Judge him by the tarnish he's willing to scrub. I'll see you in the next one.